So to start off, what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to take your two photos, and this is just a basic trick, but I like to use Zoom, so I do I put two keyframes. This graph right here, the ease out. I'm pretty sure ease out. I don't really remember. So it looks like that. And then what I do is then I drag it so that it moves out like that. So then it looks like that usually. And then what you're gonna want to do is you want to click effects, then you want to add tiles, and then mirror, and then motion blur. It doesn't really matter what setting you put it. I usually just put it anything that looks good, so it should look like that so far. And then what you're gonna want to do is you're gonna want to take your second clip, and you're gonna want to add your two keyframes, and you're gonna want to move it over here so you can't see it because the we'll add the tiles later in a minute. But it should look like this so far now. Yeah. So just repeat what you did with the motion blur and the tiles, and then it should look like this. Okay, so I don't really know what this is called. I'm pretty sure it's called the null slide, like 3D camera, but I'll show an example on the screen that I've used before. So you're going to want to click object, and then you want to click null in the middle. And then what you're going to want to do is right where it says name, it says try. And then if you don't have premium, it doesn't matter. You can just watch an ad for it. It's free, and just click the null for each photo you have. And then what I do is I take my first image. I take my first image, and then usually I like to add like a transition before I do the null because like it looks better like that in my opinion. Like, I use it on the actual layer so I can make more transitions, move and transform because I just think it looks better that way. And then what I do is I move it downward so then it will go to the photo that I want. Hold on. So it looks like that right now, but let me adjust this really quick. Just adjust it to like so what I'm doing right now. And then add motion blur to each one. Really, you're gonna use motion blur for everything because I think it just looks better that way. So it should look like this right now. And then just repeat that for the third image. So pretty simple, I think, at least. So I don't think it should be too hard. And then use this graph to when it moves. Or you don't have to, it doesn't really matter. I just think it looks better. So it should look like this. I'm gonna put the keyframes closer so it doesn't look like fast slow because I like when it looks faster because I think it looks better. And then you're gonna want to add motion blur unless you've already added them to every single one. Then that doesn't, you don't have to. But you don't have to add motion blur, it's just optional. I just think it looks better. In my personal opinion. And then usually what I do is I add a fade in because I think it looks better. Honestly. You don't have to. I just like the way it looks. And then usually what I do is I for and Oh crap, wrong photo, sorry. I usually take the last photo and then I move it to like this, so I move it out of frame, like a basic transition again. Because honestly, so I can just move to another transition quickly. Hold on, let me just that, sorry. So it should like this. But honestly, you don't have to add a transition. I honestly just put it there because I think so I can easily transition to another piece. And sometimes I'll have little pop-ups. Hold on, let me show you. You can do with images or anything, really. Doesn't matter. Well, again, like like, you've done for every single thing. I'm sorry for, like, stuttering. This is my first tutorial. And then what I do is I use the scale, and then I put 2 keyframes, and I shrink it for the first keyframe, and then I make it larger for the second one. And then you want to do is you want to use the. This is really optional. You can use any frame. You can use any graph, but I like using this graph because I like the way it looks. So it should. If you want to use the graph that I use Elastic. It's premium, but you can just watch an ad for every single premium thing, basically. So yeah, and then I add motion blur to it. Sometimes I'll add fade if it just comes out of nowhere, so it looks better. Yeah, and you can also tone down the motion blur if you want to have the fast thing, but you also want the image to be visible at the same time. So, and you don't even have to add motion blur, it's optional. So yeah, and you should get that. Okay, and so to how to remove the watermark, you have to export it twice, but make sure the watermark is at the bottom and the top, so you have to export it twice with the watermarks at different positions. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go into mask, and you're going to want to click horizontal, and then invert.